People have this idea that the moment you say I do, everything magically changes. One day you're dating, the next, you're a completely different person in a completely different life. But that's not how it works. Marriage doesn't flip a switch. What it really does is take all the small, everyday things and turn them into big, memorable stories. Ion and Zara learned this lesson on day one. For everyone else, it was the start of their honeymoon. For them, it was the start of something much more real. Their journey as husband and wife didn't begin on a pristine beach with fancy drinks. It began in a tiny apartment that smelled like a mix of fresh paint, cardboard boxes, and the lingering scent of someone else's cooking oil. Ion dropped his suitcase by the door, a huge grin on his face, like he'd just unlocked a secret level in a video game. "Welcome to our kingdom," he announced with a grand gesture. Zara slowly took in the scene. One sofa, one small table, two mismatched mugs, and a kitchen that looked like it had never even heard of romance, let alone witnessed it. She crossed her arms, raising a single skeptical eyebrow. "This is it." Ion nodded enthusiastically. "This is it, rent-friendly. Electricity that sometimes works. And the neighbor serenades us with old songs at 6 a.m., completely free of charge." Zara couldn't help it. She laughed. "You forgot to mention the luxury." Ion's grin softened as he looked at her. "You?" She rolled her eyes, but a smile was already spreading across her face. And that right there was their marriage in a single moment, an eye roll with a smile attached. That first night, the exhaustion from the wedding hit them harder than any wave of emotion. Zara sat on the edge of the bed, carefully taking off her heavy jewelry and placing each piece into a small, cherished box. Ion watched her, his eyes half closed, but his mind half amazed. "So," he started, breaking the quiet. "Feels weird, right?" She nodded, her hands still. "Yeah, like, I'm not just visiting. I live here now." "Same," he admitted. "Except now I have to actually think before ordering food." Her head snapped up, her eyes sharp. "What is that supposed to mean?" He immediately went into panic mode. "I mean because you're here with me forever and I respect you, your food preferences, deeply." She held his gaze for 3 long seconds and then burst out laughing. "Relax," she chuckled. "I know you too well already." And that was the beautiful, complicated truth of it all. They knew each other too well to pretend to be perfect honeymooners. They say, marriage doesn't test your love, it tests your habits. The very next morning, Zara walked into the bathroom and froze in her tracks. The toothpaste, it was squeezed right from the middle. She stared at it as if it had personally insulted her entire family line. "Ion," she called out, her voice echoing in the small apartment. "Yes, my legally wedded wife," he answered cheerfully from the other room. "Who taught you to squeeze toothpaste like this?" she demanded as he appeared in the doorway, looking completely confused. "Like what?" "Like a monster." He let out a laugh. "Hey, it still works. That's not the point." He leaned casually against the doorframe, a playful smirk on his face. "You married me knowing this." She let out a dramatic theatrical sigh. "I thought love would change you." His smile softened. "Oh, it will. Just not the toothpaste." She shook her head, fighting back a smile. In the epic battle of marriage versus toothpaste, toothpaste remained undefeated. Next on the agenda was breakfast. They decided to cook together, a true test of any relationship. Ion started cracking eggs with the flair of a TV chef. Zara, meanwhile, read the pancake recipe like it was a legally binding contract she was about to sign. "You're putting way too much oil in that pan," she pointed out. "You're stressing the eggs out," he retorted without missing a beat. "You're burning the bread." "Tight. Not burnt, it's crispy." Just then, smoke began to billow from the toaster and fill the tiny kitchen. They looked at the smoke, then at each other. And then they both started laughing so hard they had to sit down on the floor, tears streaming down their faces. A few minutes later, they were eating takeout, sitting cross-legged on that same floor, sharing food from a single container. Zara looked around their chaotic, smoky kingdom and said softly, "This isn't how I imagined married life would be." Ion paused, his fork halfway to his mouth. "Better or worse?" She thought for a moment, a small smile playing on her lips. "Different, but real." He nodded in agreement. Same. That night, as if on cue, the power went out. They lay in the dark, the only light coming from the moon through their window, the only sound the neighbor's distant radio. In the quiet darkness, Zara spoke. Promise me something. Anything, he replied instantly. Even when life gets boring. Or hard. Promise we won't ever forget to laugh. Ion turned toward, the sound of her voice, his own tone gentle. Okay, now promise me something too. What? Even when I mess up. Remind me that we're on the same team. She reached out in the dark and found his hand, her fingers lacing with his. Always, in that quiet, powerless moment, marriage didn't feel like a heavy weight or a grand destination. It felt human, it was messy, it was loud, it was funny and warm, and it was just the beginning. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more content about the real, funny, and beautiful side of life. See you next time. They say, marriage doesn't fall apart in one big dramatic moment. It slowly unravels, one sock at a time, usually in front of a washing machine. Zara discovered this on day 12 of her marriage. She stood there, in the laundry area, holding one of her favorite white curtains. It was now officially off-white, with a distinct hint of pink regret. Ion, she said, her voice dangerously calm. That calm scared him more than yelling ever could. Yes, he answered, popping his head around the corner. Why? Is my white curtain pink? Ion leaned in, inspecting the garment with the seriousness of a detective. He nodded thoughtfully. Because love knows no color. Zara just stared at him, her expression blank. He quickly added, also because you put your red dupatta in the same load. She blinked. I did. Yes, he said with unwavering confidence. I clearly remember watching you do it. You were asleep, she replied flatly. He didn't miss a beat. Then spiritually, I watched you. She threw the now pink curtain onto the table. This is why people warn you about marriage, he laughed. Because of laundry? No, she said, turning to face him. Because you think a joke can fix everything? He softened his tone, his smile fading a little. Sometimes they can. She didn't reply, and that's how their first real fight began. It didn't explode, it simmered. It was in the unwashed dishes left in the sink, the missed calls that went unreturned, and the growing distance between their sleep schedules. That night, Zara lay in bed, facing the wall. Ion lay on his back, staring at the ceiling, replaying the day like a bad movie he couldn't turn off. Are you mad? He finally asked into the quiet room. She didn't answer. The silence hurt more than shouting ever could. I'm trying, he said, his voice barely a whisper. I don't always know how to do this right. She finally turned to face him, her eyes reflecting the dim light from the window. I know, but sometimes it feels like I'm the only one adjusting. It feels like I'm doing this alone. He swallowed hard. I never want you to feel alone, especially not when I'm right here. The silence returned, but this time it felt different. Less angry, more thoughtful. Then Zara sighed. I don't want to fight. Me neither. I just want us to learn. He managed a weak smile. I'm a slow learner. She rolled her eyes, a hint of her old humor returning. I noticed. They both let out a soft laugh. The fight ended right there. Not with grand apologies or dramatic promises, but with a simple, quiet dose of honesty. Later that night, at precisely 2:14 a.m., Ion sat bolt upright in bed. Do you want ice cream? Zara peeked at him from under the covers. Is this your apology strategy? Yes, he admitted without hesitation. She smiled. It's working. A few minutes later, they were sitting on the cold kitchen floor, their backs against the cabinets, eating chocolate fudge ice cream straight from the tub. You know, Zara said between spoonfuls, when I was single, I thought marriage meant stability. A calm, predictable life. Ion nodded, scraping the side of the container. I thought it meant peace. No more drama. She looked at him, a smear of chocolate on her chin. Turns out, it's effort, a lot of effort. Worth it though, he said, meeting her gaze. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Yeah, worth it. The next day, Zara was scrolling through Instagram. Perfect couples on pristine beaches, coordinated outfits, captions that read like poetry. She showed Ion her phone. Why don't we look like this? He glanced at the screen and then back at her. Because that's a photo shoot, not a marriage. She laughed still. Sometimes I can't help but compare. He gently took the phone from her hand and placed it face down on the table. Our life won't always look pretty. It won't always be inspiring and worthy, but it'll feel real. And that's better. She looked at him, genuinely impressed. Wow, you're getting wise. He grinned. Marriage upgraded my software. She poked his side. Still buggy. Very, he agreed. Weeks turned into months. They started learning the small things, the unspoken rules of their relationship. They learned that Zara needed quiet time to decompress after long days at work. They learned that Ion, despite his tough exterior, needed affection the most when he pretended he didn't. They were learning each other's love languages, the hard way through trial, error, and a lot of missteps. One evening, Zara surprised Ion with his favorite meal. He walked in, saw the table set, and looked completely shocked. What's the occasion? No occasion, she said, smiling. I just missed you today. He pulled her into a tight hug. But I was right here all day. I know, she whispered into his shoulder. I still missed you. And that's when it clicked for him. Marriage wasn't just about physical presence. It wasn't about being in the same house or sleeping in the same bed. It was about connection. It was about feeling seen, heard, and understood. One rainy night, the power went out again. They sat by the window, watching the raindrops race each other down the glass pane, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of a candle. Remember our wedding vows? Ion asked. Zara smiled in the dark. Barely. I was so nervous I think I blacked out. He chuckled. If we could rewrite them now, knowing what we know, what would you add? She thought for a moment, her eyes following a single drop of rain. I promised to choose you. Even on the boring days. Even on the days when we're just doing laundry or paying bills. He nodded, taking her hand. And I promised to fight for us, even when I'm tired, and even when it's easier to just go to sleep angry. They smiled at each other in the candlelight. There was no crowd, no music, no fancy decorations. Just the two of them and the simple, powerful truth. Marriage wasn't getting easier. It was still messy and complicated, and sometimes frustrating. But it was getting deeper. And somehow, through all the pink curtains and late-night talks, it was becoming a lot more fun. Thanks for watching. If this story resonated with you, let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more real stories about love and life. See you next time.